And so the kind of the whole ecosystem it's not aligned to the actual needs of the people actually doing the work. Otherwise, we would have solved this problem. Alert fatigue wouldn't be a thing in 2025 like it was in 2000. So people can keep making money. The founders make money, they get acquired and they run off in the sunset millions of dollars. The investors make money for their investors, so they continue to get more investment in them. Meanwhile, it's been 25 years, and the security operations teams are still in the same place you were. Again, 25 years ago, still alert fatigue, still, none of these companies, none of these investments have solved our problems. They've been Band-Aids.
Welcome to the Cybersecurity Defenders Podcast, where we talk to the people who keep the internet safe. These industry experts share their innovative cyber defense technologies, vital insights into threats, and predictions for the future of cybersecurity. My name is Christopher Luft. I'm one of the co-founders of LimaCharlie, and I will be your host. This podcast is brought to you by LimaCharlie, maker of the SecOps cloud platform, infrastructure for SecOps where everything is built API first. Scale with confidence as your business grows. Start today for free at LimaCharlie.io. Now let's get into it. My guest today is Erik Bloch, a veteran in cybersecurity with over 30 years of experience across security operations, IT, and product development. Currently serving as VP of Security at Illumio, Erik has led security and IT functions at both startups and large enterprises and has advised several security startups focused on SOC and MSSP innovation. A self-described security tinkerer, Erik combines technical depth with a people-first leadership style. He's also a frequent podcast guest known for his practical takes on AI and SecOps, the importance of fundamentals, and reducing alert fatigue. Thanks so much for being with us on the show today, Erik. It's a real honor to have you.
I appreciate you asking me to be on.
Before we get into it, I'm always interested to learn how people got their start with technology and how they ended up in cybersecurity. What did that path look like for you?
Way back when I was, in high school, I'm going to date myself a little bit here. So I graduated high school in 1990, when probably the majority of people listening to this weren't alive yet, which is another story. I got started using a Commodore VIC-20 and a Commodore 64, programming little games myself. When I graduated high school, I joined the military and the Army, and they give you a test called the ASVAB to see what you're good at. And they're like, hey, look, you're good with computers. So they put me into the computer program to learn how to use computers. And this was back when the military was transitioning from paper to computers. We're using like 286s, 386 computers. And while I was assigned to some units in Europe, I was attached to some armor units or whatnot, and I was helping them do the things. I was unhappy with how our computer programs were running because we kept failing all of our inspections and tests that we'd have, and so I started breaking into our own computer to change our grades, kind of sort of in a way, right? To change our back end so all the numbers lined up with what we had on paper. Once I got caught doing that, well, the first time I got busted back to a private and was cleaning bathrooms for 2 weeks, and whatnot. The second time I did it, because again, I don't want to fail. I got called in front of our sergeant major for our battalion, and he goes, nah, like this isn't happening anymore. You're in the wrong place. And they transferred me to a military intelligence unit out of Aberdeen Proving Grounds. That was actually, it was the first unit military doing this. We work with special forces, and the special forces went out and basically stole stuff from everybody, friends, foes, whatever it was they thought was interesting, and they bring it back to us, and we had to figure out what it was. And so my role on this team was to look at the electronics and computers and stuff that we get from the people out stealing it and try to figure out what it was. And so that kind of got me interested in, reverse engineering back in the early days. And so I kind of transitioned from that. When I came out of the military, I went to college and went into computer science. And I still had, I was very intrigued by kind of my reverse engineering and some of the stuff we were doing in the Army. And I rolled that into security. I helped develop the first security class and program at Chico State, where I went to college here in California. From there, I was recruited out of college by Cisco. And back then it was 1999.
And good time to be at Cisco.
Oh yeah, they were Fortune 1 at the time.
Yeah.
Fortune 1 back then is a lot different than now. Their Fortune 1 was like $40 billion versus today where it's trillions, right?
Yeah.
but they were starting their first information security team and program there, and I was the 14th person to join this program. Um, I was there for about 9 months when I got put in charge of a case called Boxcar. This is the case that involves the Chinese telecommunications company Huawei
Oh
breaking
no.
into Cisco and
Yeah.
stealing all of our source codes.
Canadian horror story right there.
Yeah. So I worked for the better part of 3 years on this case, trying to figure out, how they got in, how they got our source code, how they got it out, working with the Department of Justice, FBI, everybody else involved in that. And during that process, I kind of by default ended up standing up a CERT team and leading the CERT team for Cisco for about 4 years. So not only did I do the Huawei case, which was again like 3 years of my life. I also did a bunch of insider stuff. We had insider trading going on, back during the days of Fortune 1, embezzlement cases, hacking cases or whatnot. And from there, I just kind of stayed with it. Once I kind of cut my chops in the military and at Cisco, it was something I really enjoyed doing, and I just continued doing it. And now it's been, again, 2025, so we're going on 35 years for this.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, and I still enjoy it. Obviously,
Yeah.
I'm still here.
Yeah, it's you mentioned Cisco around the .com. I know that was like they were growing like crazy back then, and then you mentioned Huawei, so I jumped in there because Nortel, Canada's largest startup for a little while, got gutted by their hacking team there. So I'm glad to hear you're fighting the good fight. Yeah,
they were ruthless and didn't care.
Yeah,
because what are you gonna do? Go get them? No.
And do you want to tell us a little bit about what Illumio does?
Sure. So I've been here, I want to say about 10 months now, since taking over the security function here. Illumio, I was familiar with them when I was at Salesforce, when I was in their security operations program over there. We were their largest customer at the time. And they started out originally doing segmentation, breaking your flat networks because we had our own data centers and our own Salesforce cloud, whatnot. And we wanted to break up our network into little pods so we isolate our customers. So if one customer got breached, it wouldn't spill over to all the customers or all the databases or whatnot. And so we implemented Illumio, again, when we had our own data centers, our own cloud, to do that segmentation. So we could easily spin up a pod whenever we onboarded a new customer. So every customer by default would be segmented off from all the rest of them. And it allowed us to do it via software versus, having to log into the top of rack switch and assign, the switch ports and assign all the ACLs and everything else. It allowed us to do this on the fly via software solution. So I was familiar with them and their founders from the days back in 2017 when they were running around our offices in San Francisco. And at the time, there were maybe 300 people. And they tried to pinch me back then to come work for them to be the head of security. And I declined it because back then Salesforce was a rocket ship. My stock was going up quickly. It was raining money. We were hiring people like crazy. And, over the almost 4 years I was there, when I started, the team was about 250 people. When we left, it was over 2,000 people. So it was just rocket ship territory. Wow. So I couldn't leave. Yeah. This next time they came around, the former person had left, and they were looking for a change of direction, going kind of more strategic and kind of planning their next phase of the company. They had some new products that were launching that targeted the security operations space, which was for them it was a new muscle they hadn't flexed before. Segmentation is selling to a different customer. It's more strategic, selling to the CISO, the CIO. You're mitigating high level risks. Versus security operations, where that's day to day, kind of the grunt work, right? You're in the trenches. And they were launching a new product that previewed at RSA, and I think they GA'd it about 2-3 months ago, called Insights, which is kind of their play into the CDR market. It kind of sits on top of the segmentation product, where the segmentation has all your flow data, north, south, east, west, what's allowed, what's not allowed, because that's the whole idea of segmentation. And they used to ask me at Salesforce, like, you have all this data, what do you do with it? And I'm like, I throw it in the bit bucket. Like what? Like what do you expect me to do with petabytes of flow data? I can't unless I have a team of 40 people. I'm not going to be able to do anything with it. And so they heard that, and this new product Insights that they just recently launched here sits on top of all that data. It attempts to make it actionable. And so we have our version 1, again, that GA'd like 2 months ago, 3 months ago. My team uses this internally. We're I don't like to eat your own dog food analogy. I like that we're drinking our own champagne analogy. So we're drinking our own champagne internally. And because I'd worked on products before on the product side as product owners for some platforms or whatnot, when they asked me to come on board and say, like, we want you to help with the product and run security, like that was very intriguing to me. So, as I've been here for, again, like 9, 10 months, my team has played a real instrumental role in making sure that our Insights product actually delivers value to people like me, because I'm opinionated. I can be kind of a curmudgeon sometimes when it comes to the space and the products that do and don't deliver value. And I wasn't going to allow us to ship this thing if I didn't do something that provided value. And until my team gave me the thumbs up that yes, we're using it every day and we are actually finding things that are actionable, I wasn't going to put my name on it. And so we got to that point. I'm like, okay, we have a version 1, but version 1 of everything doesn't work perfectly, doesn't do all the things yet, but it's providing value on top of our segmentation product. So you can actually see the things that, I have a gap in my segmentation. I missed a port, I missed a protocol, I missed an IP, and now we're leaking data. And now this can surface that for you. I'm finding a lot of use for it in our development environments. I mean, developers of the Wild West, like how many times they'll download just a default image from Amazon, right? With all the default passwords set, and they stand it up and they walk away.
Yeah.
And a month later, there's 5,000 SSH connections to it, right? Yeah. And those are the things. We have so many environments, so many systems that are spun up, so many customers, and there's so much noise. Like before, even with a tool like a CNAP, right? I wouldn't have been able to surface that unless it surfaced it for me. And here, because it is sitting on top of our own flow data, and we are, we enrich it with threat intelligence and whatnot, it surfaces these things pretty quickly. And so, within a few hours of one of our developers standing up a box, the default SSH password, like my team's alerted to it. Look, someone did it again because someone's just logged into it, right? And we're able to turn the things off pretty quickly. So it's been a really exciting 10 months here. Getting to do security work. Getting to use our own products, getting to help give feedback into our products to make it more useful and valuable to people like me. Mm-hmm. So,
sounds really interesting to be sitting on that layer with that kind of visibility into petabytes of data and see things that quickly. That sounds like a really good vantage point for defense.
But it really is. I mean, there's lots of data. I mean, I'm sure you guys see this problem too, right? I mean, there's no shortage of data. It comes down to the old analogy of wanting to find a needle in the haystack. Mm-hmm. And back in the day when SIMS first came out, Splunk first was here, ArcSight, Net Forensics. Yeah, that sounded good, right? That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to find the needle in the haystack. Today, people don't want to hear that anymore, right? Mm-hmm. They want the outcome. Like, mm-hmm. I want to buy the needle. Yeah. I don't want to buy the solution until you find the needle in the haystack, right? Yeah. Because that's where we've been for 20 years. Is right the detection rule. Here's 50,000 alerts. One in there is good. Knock yourself out finding it, right? So because we understand the flow data, because we understand the policies of how the thing should be working, it's easier for us to put something on top of that then translate that data to, hey, look, this is something happening that is against your policy or shouldn't be happening, or it's a gap because I see you have policies everywhere else that aligns with this and this one environment doesn't. So for us to understand our own data, it made it easier for us. To actually make it actionable, so we can actually go through and say, look, this is all normal traffic. This is the hay. Get rid of it. Yeah. Everything else that's left is either a needle or we legit don't know what it is. In either event, let's show it to somebody. And that's kind of where we are today, where we're moving a lot of the hay. 89% of the flows that we know are okay because they're abiding by policy. We model them over time, and the deviations are small, and they're as far as we can tell, benign traffic. Again, the things that are obviously not good because they violate your policies, or hey, look, we see just dumped 5 terabytes of data just left your network. Things that are obvious, those are easy to flag. Or the things that are, again, anomalous, where it's not against the policy, but it's not normal either. Mm-hmm. And those are the things we also want to flag to put in front of people. Yeah. Obviously we have plans to continue to iterate on it and make it higher fidelity, but initially A lot of our customers that have segmentation product are like, this is cool because I have all this data. Like when I was at Salesforce, I have tons of data. I just can't do anything with it. I know
Yeah.
there's something in there. There's something
Yeah.
in there somewhere, right? I
We're
just
just going
can't
to
find
save
it.
it over here in this S3 bucket and hope we can
Yeah, in
get
case we
some.
get burned, we can go back and look at it later. Oh,
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
it was,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we're able to actually take all of that data that you're already collecting from our products and make it actionable, which is kind of the first use case we went after, which to me is extremely valuable, especially doing security. Because I mean, I'm not going to use a vaporware product. I'm not going to use a product just because I was told to use it. That wastes my team's time. Because again, like security teams everywhere. I don't have a limited budget. I have a limited team. I have capacity, and we can only look at so much stuff. And making sure that my guys are looking at the most impactful issues, and we're not wasting our time. Like that's what I'm all about, right? I mean, having led security operations for large companies, like that was my primary goal. Making that impact and not wasting my team's time. And even though I'm a smaller shop now, that's still my goal.
Very interesting. It kind of leads up to my question here, what you're just talking about. So looking back over your career, 30, 35 years, like you said, what do you see as actually having changed versus things that just got renamed or reshuffled and repackaged?
Um, I mean that's a hard one. Like I've kind of sat around with people that are in my age range who have been around a long time. Anton over at Google and Josh at Alpha Level and those guys who have been around a long time, and they've been in the similar battles that I've been in, and they've seen the similar things that I've been in, and kind of the opinion across the board for all of us old timers is we're almost in the same place we were 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like you go back to the year 2005, right?
Yeah.
And you read like some of Anton's old blogs or some of my old things, and it's pretty much the same. Like the problems we still face are very similar. It's just that we're not on-prem, now we're in the cloud,
Mhm.
or now we're not using a SIM, we're using a CNAP.
SOAR
Some
or
of those
whatever.
names have changed, evolved, to do different things. But from the security operations side of things, like what's changed really? There's still a lot of noise. A lot of it's garbage. I mean, still even today, 80, 90% of it's benign or noise crap, right? And we're still sorting through it all to find that magical 5 or 10% of all the things you want to find. Um, and that's kind of the boat we've been in, regardless of the tool we had. I mean, SIM promised to solve this problem, and it didn't. And then UBA came along, or UEBA came along, promised to solve the problem. Nope. Then SOAR came along,
Yeah.
promising to solve the problem, and
Yeah.
here we are. Now AI is coming along. We're really going to solve it this time, right? Here we are, and it's just they're repackaging the messaging,
Yeah.
every 5 or 10 years for the next product. And people get very emotionally attached to it. They get very this is going to do it. I swear to God. Yeah, okay. Show me the data, bud. Like, let's see what happens over the next couple of years. The AI, obviously is providing some value in some places. Can it solve all the world's problems in security operations? No. I mean, there's constraints, everything from cost to volume that will prevent this at scale unless you are a Google. The rest of us won't have the resources or the budgets available to do that. But we are leveraging it in certain places where it does provide a lot of impact, where it can automate a few things really quickly. And again, not blow our budget up out of the water.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think? SecOps is more of an engineering problem or operations?
That's actually a really interesting question because what I've seen across the years, it really depends on how your organization is set up. You can make it very engineering based. Salesforce, we built our own internal detection pipeline, Kafka, Spark, Kafka, the data leak on the backside, scripts everywhere, hacking things, our own ticketing system. Very, very engineering focused. I mean, we had a team of over 80 engineers that just kept our detection platform running, and our IR people, were all proficient in coding and whatnot. Versus other shops I've been at, where I've been at Atlassian. It's very operationally focused. Like we're using tools off the shelf, and we're using SOAR, no-code SOAR platforms to stitch everything together to
Mm.
build our similar pipeline. And at the end of the day, like whether it was Salesforce or Atlassian, all the information got dumped to a ticket someplace, whether it was in Jira or Salesforce, and
Yeah.
got put in front of a person to triage. And how you got from point A to point B differs from every company. Again, it can be engineering based, operational based, a mix of both. or maybe something completely different, like you've outsourced the whole thing to an MSSP, you're just receiving alerts, or maybe you're just receiving escalations. So every company does it is different. And I'm not sure if there's any one right way. It's probably more of aligned to what's your company culture, how do you guys usually do things there, what makes sense from the environments you're in, the tools you have today. But I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to that. It just depends, how you've set it up internally and how you work internally.
Thinking about the last 30 years again, alert fatigue, I would say, is something that hasn't changed. Do you have any opinions on why that hasn't gone away? Why are we still wasting so much time going after things that are false signals?
Yeah, this is something I'm very opinionated on, and I've burned some bridges with some people I advised over this. And so as I've kind of double clicked and I've published some information on my LinkedIn page around kind of what security operations teams do from an kind of an outcome point of view. Like once all the tickets are closed, what work do they actually do? And then I've worked backwards to, okay, how did they get to closing this ticket? The noise came in from someplace. And, where did that noise come from? Not only just the tickets, the tools and whatnot, but the sources. And, I've broken it down to enterprise SOCs. There's two sources of information. There's human-based noise where people are reporting things, which kind of scales linearly as you have more people. Then there's your machine-based noise, all the tools and stuff you have in place. And as I've gone through that and kind of worked my way backwards, looked at all the data and compared, numbers with my peers, talking with startups and VCs and investors or whatnot. I mean, we have a similar problem we had, again, 20, 25 years ago. We have a lot of noise being made. We have a lot of alerts that are generated, right? And, 85 to 90% of them are not malicious. Whether they're benign, they're duplicates, they're false positive, logic scale, whatever it is, right? But at the end of the day, they're not malicious. And we're trying to find that 5 to 10% of the things that are. From, again, double clicking on some of this information and working with some of the startups I did, a lot of these alerts coming from our if you shift left to the tools that are actually making this noise, like those are the tools that are generating, the 80, 90% of, the stuff that is not malicious. 5 to 10% of it is, that's what you want. But to get that, you have to get the 100% of all the noise. And again, 89% of it's not malicious. And these are coming from endpoint products, from CrowdStrikes to the Wizzes of the world. If you have Splunk, they're just replaying all those detections that are coming through. AWS GuardDuty, you name them all. Mm-hmm. And they're all generating, 9 non-malicious alerts for every one that is malicious, on average. And we haven't solved that problem. They're hoping that, AI will solve that problem for us by triaging all of those alerts for us and trying to weed out the 9 to find that one. At the same time, look at the scale you're going at. So you have 1,000 alerts per day, multiply that times 365 days a year, and that's millions of dollars in compute time, for LLMs to handle stuff. So to most companies, it doesn't make much sense to tackle it that way. To me, I want to push back left and go back to the vendors and say, look, you're generating 80 to 90% garbage. Do a better job at it.
Yeah.
Like how they add AI to their tool, do something on their side, right? Where they're making less noise. Because at the end of the day, like as a defender, I'm trying to find the high fidelity alerts that I can action.
Yeah.
And I'm having to weed through, again, 80 to 90% of the ones that aren't that to find the ones that are. And this is the vendor I'm paying millions of dollars a year for.
But do you think there's a risk in like that aggressive filtering where we miss one of the ones that we should have caught? Like, do you think there's more risk there, or is that again just the vendor's problem to solve?
I mean, well, it's both. I mean,
yeah.
If you do, start filtering, weed things out, yeah, you might miss something. You might miss an actual event, right? At the same time, if you're in the SOC, like you're missing stuff because you're looking at a small fraction of all the things you could be looking at.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to miss. This is why you have an IR team, right? So when you do miss something, you can respond to it, and so you're going to miss it one way or another.
And you're hoping to catch one of the things and all the things that are making it the bad thing.
And to me, I prefer from a capacity issue, from just a human work issue, of I don't want to burn my people out, is give me less but higher fidelity. And if we miss something, okay, cool. I would have missed it anyways because I probably wouldn't have seen it to begin with. I mean, I point back to every role I've had at a major company here. going back 20 years, I can point back to, Atlassian when the Chinese APT hacked us in 2023, and went after all of our Confluence customers. Like, we had 4 detections that we missed because the volume was just too high. 4 medium detections that all kind of were coordinated together. We completely missed them, flew under our radar. 2 of them marked false positives, 2 we didn't look at. You're going to miss them, either because you have too high a velocity and too high a volume coming in and you're overworked, crushing your team, or you'll miss them because you don't look at them. Or again, if the vendor filters them out, you're going to miss them. So it's going to happen anyways. And so if you kind of assume that's where you're going to end up, like, why not generate fewer things that are higher fidelity so your people are making an impact? You're working on the things you want them to be working on. They're mitigating the known risks that are there. And yeah, every once in a while, something's going to slip through. It's bound to happen. You don't see it, you miss it, whatever reason. But again, that's why you have an IRA function to respond to things like that.
Hey, it's Nicole from the LimaCharlie marketing team. Many security teams deal with tool sprawl, dozens of different solutions that create gaps in visibility and slow down response times. Our SecOps cloud platform consolidates your security stack into a unified platform where everything works together. LimaCharlie gives you comprehensive endpoint visibility and automated response capabilities in milliseconds instead of minutes, so you can stop threats before they spread across your environment. Try our scalable infrastructure for your security services for free at limacharlie.io.
You made a really interesting point there too. Like, a lot of people are very optimistic about AI and its ability to do all these things, and I don't doubt that it can. But like, with the volume, like you said, we're talking about burning piles and piles of money because it's not cheap. So how do you separate, that useful AI from the hype? Like, is there stuff that you're seeing actually work inside of security operations, or is it yet to be proven?
When I was at RSA, I probably talked to, probably a small fraction of all the AI vendors that are there. I was looking at some of the AI vendors that focusing on security operations. There's the AI SOC vendors, there's the AI SOAR vendors, there's the AI, whatever that threat, continuous threat model exposure, whatever all the buzzwords are for it. They're all targeting this similar person in the SOC. They're all trying to deliver you high fidelity alerts. And, some of them, they promote, oh, look, we were able to, process, all these alerts in a minute, which helps your guys, look at more things, or we're able to weed out, half the things, or whatever it is. They're all pointing to their kind of their tactical metrics to show how they're making their teams more efficient. They can do more things, right? And I try to stress to them that that's not the core issue we're trying to solve here. Isn't volume or velocity. Like, if you can 10x my team, right? But say, again, if you look at all the work a SOC does, say, 90% of their work that day is looking at phishing emails. And if they're working, 1 ticket an hour, or 1 ticket every half hour, then that means you're going to probably look at, 7 to, if it's a half hour, maybe, 13, 14 phishing tickets a day. Tell the person that's actually doing that work, like, guess what? Now I can do 130 phishing tickets every day, right?
Yeah.
He'll be out. Bye. Peace.
Yeah.
Like, I'm done with this crap, right?
Yeah.
They want to work on, this is why they're in the job. They want to catch the bad guys.
Yeah.
They don't want to be told you can do 10x more crap work, right? And so this is the part I keep stressing to the AI vendors is, if you want to target anything, like, I don't want to see your demo about how you caught the cool APT. Those are once or twice in a career events.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see how you can, go through all my crap DLP alerts and weed them all out, right? Or go through my phishing alerts, because again, that scales linearly with people.
Yeah.
Like, and there's no way to really pre-filter all that. You can buy, Mimecast, Proofpoint, and try to cut some of that stuff out. End of the day, you're still going to have probably a fixed number based on the number of employees you have, and you have to deal with those things. So I always tell the vendors to go out to the crap work. I had that post a while back where I stole that graphic from the girl saying, I want the AI to do my dishes and laundry so I can do my writing and artwork. I don't want the AI to do writing and artwork so I can do the dishes and laundry, right?
Yeah.
It's a great analogy, because that's what I want to do. I want to do the crap work that burns my team out, that's not exciting, that's repetitive, so they can work on, catching the bad guys, which is, again, what they want to do, why they're there. And if I can help them do that, they'll become more motivated, more engaged employees. It's a win-win all around. And it's surprising how many of these vendors kind of miss that point. They're looking for volume, they're looking for velocity. How much more stuff can we push through, as an efficiency play? And then you look at the founders, and a lot of these guys have never worked in security to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're looking at it from a strictly, financial, point of view of how can I save you time and money with my tool? Therefore, if I can, you must want to buy it.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of a disconnect a little bit, which also goes back to, again, why I've kind of burned some bridges here with some investors and startups, where the investors who are in this market, and I kind of learned this the hard way around RSA. I was talking to some of my friends who are investors. They're like, Erik, our primary job here is to make a return for our investors.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's my job, is to make them money off investing it, right? And I was like, okay, it clicked in my head that their job wasn't to solve our problems.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to solve my team's problems that we're getting burned out. Their job is to make money. And if they can invest in a company that will act as a Band-Aid, right, that people will go buy, cool, they'll make money. Yeah. And then when that company fails, or gets acquired or whatever happens, right?
Yeah.
But my point is, again, it's been 25 years, and the security operations teams are still in the same place you were. Again, 25 years ago, still alert fatigue, still, none of these companies, none of these investments have solved our problems. They've been Band-Aids,
mm-hmm.
right? And this enables the investors to keep on making the next investment, the next Band-Aid. If they ever solved our problem, count the pharmaceutical industry, right? They wouldn't have anybody else to sell to. The problem would be solved. There'd be no more Band-Aids. And so kind of the whole ecosystem it's not aligned to the actual needs of the people actually doing the work. Otherwise, we would have solved this problem. Alert fatigue wouldn't be a thing in 2025 like it was in 2000. Like, we're not solving the problem. We're putting on incremental Band-Aids so people can keep making money. The founders make money, they get acquired, and they run off in the sunset millions of dollars. The investors make money for their investors, so they continue to get more investment in them. Meanwhile, the people in the trenches, that using the MEs, we're still in the same place we were, again, 20 years ago. Hence why you can see why investors aren't really a huge fan of me. Not all of them, and there are some that are trying to solve problems. I mean, to be fair.
Yeah.
But you look at some of the track records of some of the bigger shops, and this is what they're doing.
Yeah. No, yeah, I love how you put that. My business partner actually has said to me at one point that sadly, when a company becomes big enough, its product becomes the stock. And I think that's the fate suffered by a lot of the big players in the space, where, it is about the shareholders, not about, I think early on people are still optimistic and have a lot of integrity, but as the things grow and more people are involved, that kind of gets lost in the haze a little bit.
Yep. It's what it is. It's convoluted. And especially when you see the, how they, some of these VC companies will engage with CISOs and people lead security functions. I mean, we've all heard about the Cyberstarts thing where they're basically, paying CISOs to demo their products and
mm-hmm.
Buy their products, and there's kickbacks. And a lot of VCs, are doing this.
Mm-hmm.
They make it, they're not, in the U.S. there's laws against this, so a lot of the foreign ones are doing this. But even in the U.S., they figure out ways to,
sure.
Send you on a trip or a junket or whatever it is, or you're part of our advisory committee. We're going to have an offsite, in Cancun. It's all free.
Yeah.
Hey,
and bring your wife, bring your kids.
Yeah. I mean, and from that point of view, when you're on the security side of things and you're not used to getting a whole lot of, bells and whistles, you're more used to the crap rolling downhill on top of you versus somebody giving you, something cool and shiny. I can see why a lot of CISOs are doing that. And hence it continues kind of feeding the same problem where, the CISOs are like, yay, I'm going on a vacation with my family. This is great. I'm going to buy some widget that my SecOps team's going to use. They're going to hate, but whatever, they already hate what they have today. Everything sucks. I'm not going to solve the problem.
I'm going to go somewhere new in 2 years anyway. And
yeah. And it just continues to feed into each other.
Just quickly back to AI, I had one more question on this. So for as far as like agentic SecOps or AI SecOps go, what would be something that if you saw it would blow your mind and change your opinion about where this stuff is going?
There are some startups that are doing some really cool things that it involves data science, not necessarily generative AI or LLMs.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the ones that are doing kind of what I explained earlier, where they're taking all of your noise and they're trying to remove as much of it as they can, as we know this is not malicious. Let's refine this down to, again, the things that are obviously bad, because we have a strong signal that indicates they're bad for whatever reason, or the things that we simply don't know what they are. Therefore, it could be good, bad, other. You need to tell us. And there are a couple of startups doing that today. Again, one of them's Alpha Level, the one that I advise with Josh Neal over there.
Oh, I love Josh. Yeah, we're good friends.
Oh yeah, they're seeing almost 90% reduction in alerts, and they're tracking the data, and they're actually seeing that kind of what I assumed and kind of predicted, that you shift left, and a lot of your tools that you're paying, again, millions of dollars a year for, those are the ones that are the biggest offenders. They're either missing things, or they're just generating tons and tons of alerts for the sake of having an alert, even when they know that they're missing something or it's incorrect. Because they went through and they've modeled some of these alerts, and they know that they're missing things. They know that things are firing on incorrect data. Why they're doing this, I don't know. Maybe it's a legit mistake, or a gap, or maybe they're doing it on purpose just to make tons of noise. I don't know. But the data they have points to this. And this is why I'm saying, like, instead of applying it upstream, like the SOC layer, your SIM or some AI tool or platform, like, the vendors could also do some of this at their end to self-filter on the things that are obviously not bad. Like, if AI tools and statistical modeling tools, like Alpha Level or any of the AI tools can do this upstream, like, tell me you can't do it downstream, at least half, at least half the fidelity. You don't have to 90%.
Yeah.
Get to half. Just cut in half.
10%.
Half the jump.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, try, right?
Yeah.
But they're not, because there's no incentive for them to do that.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and I love Josh Neal too. Their approach is not LLMs; it's like this old school statistical modeling.
Yeah.
And, that stuff didn't get obsolete just because we came up with the new stuff. That's like a lot of unexplored area and a lot cheaper to run in a lot of ways than LLMs, right? So.
Oh yeah, I mean it's when you compare it to LLM, because we actually, when I was with them at RSA and we were walking around, we actually did some math on what some of these vendors. There were some vendors that were kind enough to share their pricing models with us. And I'm not going to name names, but going through some basic math of again, like $1,000 per day times 365 days a year. Like, most of these guys were between 1.5 and $4 million a year to process all of those alerts. Again, like, most shops, unless you're, again, a Google or a JPMC or someplace with a huge budget, I can't let my CFO. I need another $1.5 million for what? I need to put another tool on top of all the other tools I already have to help filter all the noise they make.
Yeah.
And he'll look at me like I'm crazy. Like, what are you doing? Another tool on top of your tools that don't work? Like, you're an idiot. You get out of here. Like, there's no way I'm going to get that money. And so I can see the challenge around a lot of what these companies are facing, especially because there's so many, I think, like 120 AI vendors in this security operations space, according to the IT Harvest guys. There's probably more, right? And they're all trying to fit in this market, which is it's a big market, but how will they all survive? Because they're all either having to go after either the top people who have unlimited budgets, or the tiny shops that have a low alert volumes. That's the two places where they can make a difference. Anywhere in between, like me, like, I have too many alerts and I cannot afford the budget to bring in a tool like this. So to most of the mid-market, which is the majority of businesses, I mean, like fewer than 1% of all businesses making over 200 million ARR, right? So you're looking at the top 1% of all the companies, or the bottom 20% of all companies, which really kind of restricts your market. So either these companies will have to figure out a cheaper way to do it, again, going back to statistics, something like that, or they will evaporate when they run out of money, or they'll be acquired by somebody else. But I don't see how 120 of them continue to exist with such limited parts of the market available to them. And again, like the VC, the money train will eventually run out if you're not making money, right? So.
Yeah, and I think, to your point, I think consolidation is definitely like a phase for this market right now. You're seeing those big players snatch up the interesting technology and try and incorporate it into their quote unquote platforms, which are really just a bunch of things duct taped together.
Yeah,
right?
really together. Yeah.
Besides that, is there any emerging areas of SecOps that excite you these days? Telemetry pipelines, identity centric controls, anything?
As we get like one of the things I've noticed, I noticed this when I was at Atlassian and since I've been here as well, is I guess the consolidation of information. Where it used to be you dump it all in a SIM and you had some super complex correlation rule. You're hoping you're stitching all the things together. But even then, you didn't have access to all the information. Unless it was dumped in your SIM, you didn't have it, right? And, we're starting to see kind of like some of these tools that do the kind of federated search or the, security mesh, they call them, or even the kind of the talk of what, OpenAI and some of these companies are doing with the MCP servers to be able to talk to all their tools. And so you're kind of making a mesh in real time. So you can get the information you need, regardless of what tool it's coming from, to actually build your investigation in your case. I remember back in the day, if I needed a log from Okta, I had to go send someone to log into Okta and look at the logs, right? It wasn't possible to export them and put them on the SIM. Even if you did, like you can export them today, but it's a lot of logs you're dumping into a SIM that you have to go through and then coordinate.
Yeah,
Being able
doubling
to
up on your data everywhere and stuff.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. But being able to kind of federate these searches and have this mesh in place that allows you to grab whatever piece of information you want at that particular time without having to already have it extracted and put a coordination rule someplace, whatever it is. Like that excites me because I know when I was building effective security operations teams. Like one of the things I always wanted to do is when I put that ticket in front of a person, with Jira ticket, ServiceNow ticket, Salesforce, whatever it is, that person looking at it, I wanted all of the information to be in there where they can make a decision, yes or no. If they had to leave that ticket to go gather more information or more context, I failed. Bad job, right? I'm wasting your time. And so that used to be a case by case basis. If you had a SOAR, whatever you're using to do this, a lambda function, whatever. On a case-by-case basis, you go grab all the relevant information, stitch it together, so you can put it in that ticket for them, because it's all API-driven. With some of these new security meshes, especially the ones that are using kind of MCP server-style queries, you don't need that. You can ask it in natural language. It'll grab the information it needs in natural language. It'll put it together in natural language without you having to write a one-off detection rule or a one-off coordination rule every time you wanted to do something like this. So I have hopes around that that will help us kind of drive investigations and be a little more efficient in that department, give us access to information we didn't have access to before, and kind of get rid of a lot of the manual stitching together we had to do.
The drudgery.
To make the information available again. Like if they had to leave the ticket, I did a bad job. With something like this, you don't have to do the ticket because hopefully MCP servers grab all the right information and cobble it together for you. Or if it didn't, you just ask it, I'm missing this piece of information. It goes and grabs it for you, right? You're not having to pivot from tool to tool, which for some SOCs, like enterprise SOCs, they can be half of their time is pivoting between tools, which is pretty ridiculous.
Okay, we're getting close. I got two more. If you had to rebuild a SOC from scratch today with a modest budget but full freedom, what would it look like?
A full SOC with all the freedom. I've built both types of SOCs, like the SOC that's in a monolithic building with bars on the windows, brick walls, whatever. And I've built the virtual functions as well, where it's going to a ticketing queue someplace.
Right.
And wherever you are at in the world, you're picking up and looking at it, depending on where your tier one people are at. And I've actually found that the first model has its applications. Like if you're doing regulated industries, government work, whatever, secret information, got FedRAMP, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you have to be in a building with brick walls and bars on the window. Sorry. For everybody else, like a virtual function is fine. And I actually like building it. I'm building one of those things here where we're building a virtual function where I have tier one people all over the place. Doesn't matter where they're at, right? As long as they can, open the ticket and look at it, make a decision, and either close it out, take an action, or escalate. That's all I need. Because I compare, SOCs to, maybe it's a bad analogy, but I kind of compare them to like an IT help desk, except they're doing security work, right? Yeah. Anything IT gets dumped on the help desk. Doesn't matter what it is, right? The Zoom in my conference room is not working, or I can't check my email, or whatever it is all just dumped there. The SOC is very similar, but for security. Anything security will get dumped there, right? And it's a matter of them having to parse through it and go through and figure out what it is and where it should go. And half of the things lying in the SOC don't belong there. they get assigned to somebody else. Vulnerability management, GRC, customer trust, whatever it is. Yeah, if I was going to, build from the ground up, it would be a virtual function for sure. Because you want to be able to have maximum capacity that you can at the lowest costs, and you do that someplace else in the world besides the United States. Mm-hmm. The tooling and the ticketing systems you use will be probably in line with what your company uses. Again, if you're a very engineering focused company, Google, maybe you're building your own things. If you are a less engineering focused company, maybe again, if you're doing cars or something not tech, maybe it's a more operational based function, but kind of aligning that to what your company does, so it's less friction when you're actually building the thing out. And then, ensuring that you have that pipeline built up, you have access to all the data that you have, that you're maximizing your SOC team's time and your capacity by having them work on the most impactful things. And then again, trying to weed out all the non-malicious stuff before it gets there, so you get the most effective SOC there is. Because at the end of the day, is there any tools that I would use, or any magic fairy dust or AI dust? It doesn't really matter to me. It's the outcome that I'm shooting for.
Outcome, yeah.
Yeah, I want to get that outcome. Okay. How do I get there? Again, every company will be slightly different. Yeah. I want to work within that company's parameters to do it, but it's the outcomes that I'm driving for. Your people there to catch the bad guys. This is what's going to get them excited every day to come to work. Yeah. And if I can get them a step closer to that, then here's 10 more phishing emails. No, that's the outcome and goal I kind of want to shoot for.
Awesome. Okay. Last one I have for you. I asked this one of everybody that comes on the show. We do like a roll-up episode at the end of the year. It can be as wide or as narrow as you want. Do you have any predictions for the future of cybersecurity?
Boy, that's a loaded question right there, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the main drivers we're going to be seeing in the next decade or so, and I know people always have that saying that compliance isn't security or whatnot, but man, compliance is a massive driver of security. Majority of my budget's driven by compliance issues and controls, which are security controls, right? But without the compliance in place, you can't sell your widgets to your customers, right? You don't have your SOC 2, your ISO, whatever it is, your PCI. You're not selling your widgets. You don't have a company. And most companies start out from that point of view. You're a business enabler. And as you continue to scale, you have more and more compliance regulations around the world you have to satisfy now, especially in Europe. They drive compliance over there. We're kind of follow them. I can see compliance becoming just a massive driver in the future, especially around AI. ISO already has their 42001 that came out in March around kind of the AI SM, and similar to how the 27001s for ITSM, and how you secure your AI pipelines. Are you doing all the things correctly? And if you're using AI in your products, which everybody wants to, right? We're getting requests from our customers now. Where's your ISO 42001? Oh crap. And that's going to drive a whole bunch of internal changes, from policies to tools to controls that I wouldn't have put in place unless I was driven by this.
Right.
And because this new regulation is coming along and our customers are asking for it, I will be funded to do it. I'll be able to put these extra security controls in place.
Yeah.
Again, is compliance equal to security? No. Is compliance driving security? Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. And I just see this getting more and more and more, especially as we become more globalized. Most of our, while some of the countries are looking more inward, the companies are not. You look at most of the SaaS companies in the world, and they are global. Atlassian, when I was there, it's an Australian company operating in the United States with customers all around the world. Salesforce, all around the world. The same thing with Google, all around the world. They're looking at the global market, and they have to take in the global perspectives. Everything from, Finland's draconian data protection laws to Brazil having data residency within their country's borders, right? Which makes no sense because you're in the digital age, but that's their rules. That's their laws, right? To some of the controls in Australia, where you have to have, pen tests from a CREST certified, pen tester. You have to cater to all of these countries' rules and regulations. And at the end of the day, that's such a massive ask. There's no room left for the cool extra security things you want to do, because your entire budget's eaten up by doing what you have to do just to do business.
Yeah.
And while it's, again, it's not sexy, it's not fun, it's not exciting, maybe not what people want to hear, like, I just see that as becoming the reality. Again, when I was at Atlassian, Salesforce, 80-90% of our budget was driven by the things we must do to do business. We had, maybe 10-15% of the stuff that was extra fun, things we wanted to do, science projects, whatever. And here at Illumio, it's very similar, where the vast majority of my budget is driven by what must we do to enable the business to continue selling our products. I do have a little bit of leeway to add some extra things, some extra risks that aren't tied to anything. But as the compliance frameworks continue to grow, they're starting to encompass a lot of the things that we're missing.
Yeah.
And they're putting those mandatory controls in place, and they come and check them every year. So it's not like they're optional. Yeah. So I just see the GRC side of security becoming a much bigger part of the overall security ecosystem and playing a much more kind of ingrained role in both the other pillars of kind of security operations, the operational side of things, and your product type security initiatives, all the way through enterprise and kind of corporate security as well. Mm-hmm. It's going to be driving all of it.
I think that's a great take and a view I would share for sure. So thank you so much for joining us on the call today, Erik. It's great to have you. This was a really great conversation. I'm going to have to re-listen to this one myself just to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Awesome. It was fun to be on here. I always like it and appreciate it when people, will not only sit and listen to me, kind of ramble and rants, but are actually, excited to hear it. So
yeah, no, it's great stuff. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye. And that brings us to the end of another great conversation. You can support our show by sharing your favorite episode with a friend, subscribe, give us a rating, or leave a comment on your favorite podcast platform. If you want to be part of the conversation, you can join our community forum at community.limacharlie.io. Thanks for listening in, and we'll see you on the next one. The Cybersecurity Defenders Podcast is hosted and produced by Christopher Luft. The show is co-produced and edited by Sam Blake with graphics by Amr Al-Khatib. Sponsored by LimaCharlie, scalable infrastructure for your security services. Visit limacharlie.io to get started for free.